The mighty HQs, thoroughbred racing machinery.
Kingswood's this premier's.
It's been amazingly popular though, hasn't it?
It is staggering. But anything that allows people at entry level of racing is
important. On pole, Charles Diaquino, Neville Haley, Greg King, they've all been doing this for years, these blokes. Bob Hepburn, Timothy Rouse, Tim Young.
I'm with you.
Pretty great television spectacle.
Oh, we don't mind a bit of chaos.
And then asked for a little bit of rain.
This bloke's just checking for rust in the left-hand front still panel.
I just want to check the pronunciation of the guy out of position 8. Michael McPhilamy or McPhilamy? What would you call that?
Where's my... Have I got one? No, I've got yours.
Call it McPhilamy, I'd say.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, McPhilamy. As long as we're consistent. I'm a Tortellini fan myself. I'll be dining on pasta tonight for sure. We need the carbohydrates for tomorrow. What a day. To use allegedly, the front runners are spending upwards of $30,000 for their cars, which is crazy. HQ
the
racing.
Engines. I've just found out a bit about these engines. I didn't realise if they were quite what they are, but they run free compression ratio. So they're up around 14 to 1 and stuff like that. They've got to run trick fuel. The cranks and stuff like that. I mean, they are tweaked.
Yep. Blueprinting and balancing, and
so you can understand, with the mods that are allowed, just how it snuck up on them. Mind you, it's still relatively cheap.
Oh yeah, in comparison. But if you told someone that you'd just spent $30,000 on HQ to go racing, they'd think you're crazy.
Exactly. You expect it to be like bloody sports today, so. Okay. Thanks, man.
55, I think we've got on the grid. Yeah, 55. The quickest 55 out of what started out 130 odd this weekend. And this is the first time, Brocky, I believe there are New Zealand entries in this event at Bathurst.
Yes, it is. And there's been some slight variations country to country on tyre suppliers. Just their interpretation of some tech regs, so they've had to sort those few things out. But all in all, the Kiwis are grabbed.
So that's a good point. What are they running? Bridgestone control tyres, these guys?
Yeah, they run a... I forget the name of it. It's like a Terrain, so it's not that. It's some name like that.
So it is a Bridgestone brand?
Yeah. Other blokes in Group N, I don't know if you use either the Yankee, what do you call those Yankee Hoosiers? Or the
Hoosiers, yeah.
Or the Yokohama radar lidars. I think the Hoosiers seem to be slightly quicker.
Yeah, the Hoosiers fairly well-known brand in speedway and drag racing.
Yeah, sure. But they're a race tyre, really. Yeah, Peter Dane went into
256.
Just having a interesting conversation when I walked out there with the new chief of cams, Holland man. He's Danish touring car champion. Racing.
What's his name?
Peter. Something like that. It's not a non-Norwegian sounding name. It's a Danish sounding name.
Cams have had more chiefs than the Comanches over the years.
They have, yeah.
Our pole sitter for this 5-lap HQ event, Peter Dane, vastly experienced. Charles D'Aquino beside him on the front row. Then back on the second row, it's Neville Haley and Greg King, both of whom have been campaigning HQs for several years. Bob Hepburn and Timothy Rouse on row 3. Then Tim Young and Michael Maselli sharing the 4th row of the starting grid. And David Doherty and Leighton Cranbrook on the 5th row of the grid, and we get them underway in this 5-lap HQ event. Peter Dane, he's been a standout driver in HQ racing for many years, was dominant in qualifying, and that's him in the black car. He's going to lead them through Hell Corner the first time. 53 HQ Holdens lining up in this event. Thank you very much, Peter Brock. I'll spit it out properly now. That's no place for the faint-hearted with that many cars on the first corner.
Oh, I love it. And you see that guy with third spot coming in there, locking up at the last possible moment. Slight bit of a mudguard injection to the guy in front. Thank you very much.
1999, representing the 10th anniversary of HQ Holden Racing, was designed as a cost-effective entry formula into motorsport, and there are big numbers right around the country.
You'd have to say that, judging by the amount of Kingswoods and Premiers you can see coming up that straight there and through this corner, that the formula has been eminently successful. If you're starting off with a budget formula, it's usually judged by where it is 10 years later, and hey, HQs are looking good.
Worryingly, though, a number of the top drivers conceding that they're spending around the $30,000 mark now. And you were doing some homework on the engines of these cars before coming on air with this race, and they've got some freedom in specifications.
Well, they do. They can run very high compression, which means that there's elements of reliability can sneak in there, such as cylinder head gaskets. Unless you use fancy fuel, unless you get a detonation. A lot of engine balancing and stuff like that goes on that does contribute to the level of performance we can see. About 150 horsepower. I expect someone's going to correct me on that, but that's the sort of number that you expect out of a good HQ engine, and fairly well tied down suspension. That bloke in number third spot there, we've pinned him down in that red HQ. That's one on screen now. He's really throwing this machine around. He's got the thing oversteering nicely into the corner. Bit of a lock-up where the inside front car number 3 there.
Charles D'Aquino runs second in the white machine. Just ahead of him, Neville Haley is the driver in car number 1, to which Peter Brock has alluded. Good battle as they race down Conrod the first time. Obviously this class based on the famous 202 3.3 litre Holden red engine, which has stood the test of time.
And towed many a caravan between here and the back of the Nullarbor plane. Absolutely flat into the chase there. Of course, the old Kingswood, a bit of a lurch, but tied down pretty well with modern-day suspension. Bit of oversteer coming in there, and but well held. Probably in second gear through there, I suppose. The old 202 sort of roaring away at about 4,500 revs. They rev the thing out to around about 6.5. I think they can rev them out plenty of revs, but they don't produce much power beyond the 5,500 rev bracket.
Racing at Mount Panorama this weekend, representing a round of the National Championship for the HQs. Peter Dane, your leader, crosses the start-finish line at the completion of lap number 1. And the gap 0.54 between he and the driver in second place, Haley.
There's not a great deal happening at the moment. A lot of jostling for position, but a few different lines I noticed there in the background there. Entry into the into Hell Corner and exit. You can see that guy, that yellow Kingswood there, just disappearing out of camera there.
There's a swarm on
the curb, and
they've invaded the place.
Pick 'em, isn't it? But I suppose GM are happy about this one, saying, well, Holden's going to win the first, second, third, the podium finishes.
I should point out to our viewers, Peter, that 133 HQ Holdens arrived at Mount Panorama this week. in an effort to qualify for this race, but organisers could only take 50 odd on the grid, so plenty of them a little disappointed.
I was at the prize giving for the previous day's racing and last night, and they're a fun group of people. They love life. They've got no pretensions. They really are the salt of the earth, these people, and as you would expect from the type of cars they're racing, they enjoy it. They've got no real great desire, I guess, a lot of them to move on in other categories of racing. They're very, very happy with what they're doing. I'd imagine there'd be some young bloods in there, some young hotshots who are looking at this as a bit of a transition. They're learning the tracks and learning the craft before they move on. But at this particular point in time, it's certainly a race which is going to those with the most experience. That guy in that pink HQ, they're cutting the curb at McPhilamy. I must ask him later on, because I've been trying to run over that curb for years up here. I could never ever get it. I kept on sliding wide. He got it. I must ask his trick, actually. It's pretty good.
You're impressed. That's Bob Hepburn you're talking about.
Oh,
in the pink
Bob,
car.
you're looking good, mate.
He qualified 5th on the grid. The good thing about HQ Racing, Peter, is if you own one, you can go racing just about every weekend. They get so much track time.
Yes, and let's face it, the maintenance bills aren't horrendous. Probably your biggest bill is your telephone bill, ringing home to tell everyone what a great time you're having, really.
Yeah, producing around the 100 kilowatts of power. Peter Dane is your leader, and they race down Conrod Straight for the second time now.
Here we go, 2 abreast, maybe 3 abreast coming through the chase. Oh, yes, I think there's possibly a bit of contact there at one stage.
Your mate Hepburn in the pink machine up on the inside.
Not to be fooled with.
A little bit of exchanging of paint there.
That's not, this is under and over technique here. It's certainly not the way down to the bottom end of the circuit here. You've got to be on the right-hand side of the track, and he's learning this. Look here. No,
it's
too far ahead.
Timothy Rouse in car number 81. Hepburn right behind him. End of second racing lap now. Still Peter Dane out in front. A gap then back to Charles D'Aquino. Then Haley, King, Rouse, Hepburn. That's the order on the racetrack. The top 6 for you. And they never fail to entertain.
No, I think we all have very fond memories of Kingswoods, and we know quite well there is solid motor car, the big heavy fenders, and bumper bars, steel bumper bars in those days too, none of this sort of composite plastic sort of arrangement. If you gave someone a mudguard injection one of these cars, they stayed injected, I can tell you, and these HQ blokes know it.
As you said, it's a great example for General Motors. Plenty of cars. Here's Hepburn. Thought about a move up the inside there.
Very
and sensibly changed his mind.
Up the inside here. Now, it's very important that when you get into this particular corner on the right-hand side of the track, that you get a good exit. And we managed to see at that time, but quite often attacking at that corner does spoil your run up this rest of the mountain, and that really does hurt in your lap times, I can tell you.
Believe it or not, there is a team this weekend that has entered 9 cars in the HQ Racing. Wayne Wakefield is the driver spearheading that attack.
It's almost a soccer team, isn't it? But if they've even got interchange or anything like that.
From the Gold Coast, the team is based. 9 cars. Peter Dane out in front has a gap of 1.1 seconds in advance to Charles D'Aquino in second place. Haley, King, Rouse, Hepburn. No real change in the top 6.
Haley's getting a little bit closer here. I think he's sort of got that smell in his nostrils. You can sort of smell that Kingswood in front saying any minute now, going to make a lunge.
Michael Maselli is in 35. We had a good shot of him. There is Peter Dane, though, qualified on pole with a 2 minutes 56.69 lap, and is proving the man to beat in no uncertain terms. There's D'Aquino in the white HQ.
Someone asked me the other day, but these lap times, where do they actually sit? I mean, what's a 256 mean in the terms of when that car was first produced? Well, when I first raced a Monaro GTS 350 here, the old track configuration, so you've got this particular kink wasn't involved in those days, so you've got to sort of add 5 seconds to the times we did back in those days. We did sort of times about 52, 53, which would add up to 57, 58, 257, 58. So you'd imagine with modern day technology and shocks, and tyres and stuff like that, these HQs are doing remarkably well.
That's a great analogy, Peter. Now Dane is not out of danger just yet. D'Aquino is close enough if he can get... will stay with the leader. He's some chance in this race. I guess you've got to ask the question, how much has Dane got in reserve, if anything? 1.4 seconds the gap between first and second at the end of lap 3.
Harley's starting to fill up the pressure back there, I reckon, from the guys behind him. Back in there at the 3rd spot. That's the big movers.
Battle for 3rd and 4th up Mountain Straight. Harley and King.
That corner into the Mountain Straight is just so critical, because you can, if you get a little bit wide on that one and you're 3k slower, imagine yourself walking at 3 kilometres per hour for around about 20 seconds. That's how much you'll lose over the other car that gets it right. So it's a critical corner. So is this right-hander, because you hold that speed, that momentum all the way up the hill. And boy, oh boy, it's steep. It doesn't appear that steep on camera, but when you get out and walk, I tell you what, David, you'd be huffing and puffing, so would I.
Appreciate the endorsement of my athleticism.
Well, I know, it's like I've brought myself into that one just to sort of even up a little bit.
You are a diplomat.
And out of this cutting area too, it's very steep. It starts to flatten off a little now. And this next right-hander, where you're threading it through the eye of a needle, it's difficult enough. Although in a HQ, I'd imagine be flat strap, but the car a little bit more potency. It's very difficult to get it flat through there. And then we get onto the top of the mountain, which is just gorgeous. That is through Reed Park, up over this crest, just coming up now into McPhilamy. You can't see the apex of the corner. You've got to turn in early. You've got to turn in before you actually get to the crest. And most drivers, including myself, usually get it late. We never ever get that curve, as I mentioned before, that we just never get that curve on the inside. Hello.
Oh,
we don't like the look of that one.
Out of shape. He's inventing some brand new racing lines at Mount Panorama. He's been one of the more spectacular drivers in this event so far.
My suspicion is that being a disc front and drum brake rear car, that he has been giving the car a bit of a coating the last few laps, that it looked as if the rear end might have been just sort of saying, excuse me, but I'm getting a little bit hot, and I'm going to start locking up and playing funny games with you. And that's not the place to do it. We've seen over the years a lot of real hotshot drivers go in there. I think last year in the Super Tourer race, a few cars went in that area. Generally what happens is rear wheel lockup is really the basic cause. And just if you're racing a HQ or a Super Tourer, you get the same problem. The vehicle dynamics take over.
For budding young drivers watching this at home, if you'd like to have a crack at HQ racing, find yourself about 10 grand.
Yep.
And you'll be out there having some fun. If you want to run up front, though, you'll have to spend a little more than that.
Yeah, I suppose that you could expect to run if you had great talent back there halfway through the field, but there's a candidate for the spare parts department. That's the exit of the dipper, and probably lost control coming into the right-hander before the dipper, and sort of that was a result of a bit of a whoop-de-doo.
Back up front, last lap now for our leader, Peter Dane. Car number 50. Nicely turned out too. It looks as good as any HQ you've ever seen, really.
Actually, a lot of those HQs, they were saying last night at the prize giving that they'd like to sort of make them a little bit sharper in appearance, but I'll be honest with you, I think they look pretty good.
I agree with you.
There's a bit of body film in them, but then again, there isn't a lot of cars.
I'm sure that's true. D'Aquino, Charles that is, runs second on the racetrack. Big gap to our third place driver, Neville Haley.
Back there in the distance, I see a battle for about 5th and 6th. 2 guys abreast down there coming into that corner just behind. Who won it? Well, whoops. So the guy on the inside of the cream-coloured car looks like he won that particular battle, but it's a fast corner, that right-hander. That would be very high in second gear, one of these machines, I can tell you.
Should imagine Hepburn in the pink car number 44 would be counting his blessings, the fact that he's still out there. To be honest, he's spent more time out of shape than in it.
Here we go, car number 74, the dipper. Yep, he's got wide and he's lost it in the corner beforehand. And there you are. It's just interesting, isn't it? You get it out of sequence coming down there. That's a heavy hit. That's a very heavy hit, but it's one solid piece of machinery. There's no doubt about that. Meanwhile, back there, that battle from the... Oh, a lot of oversteer. That was definitely...
Hepburn again.
There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that contact took place there.
Well, he's given us our money's worth, hasn't he?
Yeah, this guy is... Well, I mean, Cabs might have a word to him. I don't know if they would or not, but it's not Bob Hepburn. But certainly there's another incident.
Greg King, he was running fourth on the racetrack, so he'll be none too happy with that.
Now, I reckon that skyline, I reckon that was definitely up the top of the hill there. It's some very strange skid marks here across the road he's parked on top of. And whatever happened there is anyone's guess.
So they race down Conrod for the final time in this HQ support event. The Bob Jane T-Mart's Bathurst 99 Festival Australian Motorsport. And Charles D'Aquino, Peter Brock, is making a race out of this. The man in second spot, here he comes.
Absolutely. Will he dive in under brakes? He's thinking about it. He said, no, I'm too far back, but I'll get the apex. He's got the apex. He's on the track, but Dane's doing well too.
He didn't get a good run out of there. That's not going to help him.
A little bit too fast in. If you're too fast in, you get to start oversteering and you just can't get on that gas well enough, but all in all, they're both driven exceptionally well.
He's shown his fighting qualities. D'Aquino, he was 1.3 seconds behind approaching the last lap. He's made up a stack of time. And as they get across the lane, it was Peter Dane lasting for the victory. Charles D'Aquino in second. Good performance by him. And the HQs, always entertaining. Another look at the action at the top of the mountain involving Bob Hepburn. And also the driver of car 81, Timothy Rouse.
Times like this, those drivers are saying, thank goodness I'm driving a big Kingswood, because when I do hit something, it's not going to hurt so much.
And there's a few more that have decided to park.
At the chase, that's Hepburn in there too. I mean, we're talking about boys with toys playing in the sand here. This is ridiculous.
Let's recap the results of that race, and there was some attrition. Peter Dane, the victor. Charles D'Aquino, an excellent drive in second place. Back in third, Neville Haley. Timothy Rouse was fourth, and Tim Young was your fifth place getter in that highly entertaining HQ event.